Shamwari reintroduced those red-billed oxpeckers, and they are now just so common in this area. They're thriving.
Bringing the Cape vulture back to the Eastern Cape, is as big as relocating a whole lot of rhino.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another beautiful day on Shamwari Private Game Reserve. And as you can see, I'm sitting in just an absolutely beautiful place surrounded by mammals and, importantly, birds. So as we move through the year and we look at our dates on the calendar, there are a few important dates that need to be recognized, and one of those dates is Birding Day. And the importance of birds and how they fit into the greater picture of ecology, the workings of nature, and how everything just ties together is so important. We need to recognize it, and I want to show you guys a little bit more about that. So one of our now very commonly encountered bird species on Shamwari Private Game Reserve is the red-billed oxpecker. You'll see it on most of the animals around here. As we're sitting and watching the animals and watching their behavior, we'll often see a group of red-billed oxpeckers coming down to a zebra or a giraffe and feed off of the parasites, the external parasites on those animals. And it's such a common thing, but it didn't used to be. Those birds became regionally extinct from this area. They were eradicated. As the wildlife, as the big herds of game were eradicated in the late 1800s and into the 1900s, and there was just a reduction of wildlife before good conservation practices were known, those bird numbers dwindled and dwindled, and there was a use of arsenic-based dips for cattle to eradicate ectoparasites on the cattle, because they thought that was the best way of doing things. And those arsenic-based dips were just so toxic, and it led to the extinction of red-billed oxpeckers throughout most of South Africa, and there was only just small areas of those populations left. And in the mid-1990s, Shamwari reintroduced those red-billed oxpeckers, and they are now just so common in this area. They're thriving because the ecosystem is returning to nature the way it should be. And that's just a massive success story for Shamwari Private Game Reserve. And I'm also going to introduce you to two important people on the reserve, our CEO Joe Clutie and our ecologist John O'Brien, and they're going to tell us a little bit more about these birds.
I think we released them in this area somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. The first 50 that we had to go and fetch in the Kruger Park. Yeah. Remember, you had to fly up in the morning in a little private plane, collect the birds that had been caught in those mist nets up there, and then you had to fly back in the same afternoon. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we actually waited 5 years to get the birds. We were meant to get 100, but because of the heavy rains, they only caught 52. We flew up there, all these expenses, and then they said, when you get here, just open the boxes, And I thought, no ways. They're just going to go all the way. After all that time and money, they're going to go back to Kruger. But we opened them in this area here, and as you can see, there's zebra, giraffe, blessbuck, springbuck. So we opened them where there was animals. And as we opened those boxes, all 52 just went in a little cloud and started. And if you draw a line, that's straight back to Kruger. And then one bird looked back and saw a giraffe. And then all 52 just turned in unison and went down. Joe, it was mayhem, eh? Because remember, these animals didn't know what an oxpecker was, because they've been extinct in this part of the world for over 100 years,
What a success story. It's not just about the big creatures, about elephants and black rhino, etc., buffalo, but the small creatures like the red-billed oxpeckers and, the flightless dung beetles we brought back in once we had buffalo on the reserve. Very, very important in the entire sort of ecological system.
Well, if you talk about ecological system, that's why we keep on looking forward. What next? And I'd say the logical thing now is the program we're busy with the vultures.
Bringing the Cape vulture back to the Eastern Cape, is as big as relocating a whole lot of rhino. Those 150 birds, Cape vultures and whiteback vultures that are going to be relocated in January next year is a very, very exciting part of the entire Shamwari story, in my opinion. And I grew up with Cape vultures, so personally they're very, very close to my heart, and I'm very excited about that project.
Yeah. You see, also the other thing about the project is, and like with the oxpeckers, we're introducing them onto Shamwari. But they're birds, they fly, so it's an Eastern Cape introduction.
John, as an ecologist, tell me, ecologically speaking, what is the importance of the relocation of those bird species in the greater scheme of things.
Yeah, look, I mean, ecology is such a broad system, and it's so vast, you know, to try and think that you can understand the system is difficult, but every animal has its own little niche, okay? So, for example, the oxpeckers, it's a symbiotic relationship between the herbivores and themselves, and then they pick off the parasites and ticks and things like that, so they have their niche. There's a lot of niches that through European settlement disappeared in this part of the world. So bringing them back, I think, just adds to the completeness of the ecosystems as we go forward. And vultures, they were very, very much a part of this part of the world. Died out because of the arsenic-based dips. But it's to clean up the carcasses. It's all part of the system that I think, as we move forward, we just improving every day, if you think about it, what we've done in Shamwari over the past 30 years.
Very exciting project.
Well, you know, it's what keeps us going, eh? Continuously improving, continuously adding value to, one, the Eastern Cape, and two, Shamwari as an ecosystem.
Yeah, you know, you're spot on, eh?
Well, that was amazing hearing from Joe and John about one of the great success stories of Shamwari Private Game Reserve and reintroducing those birds. And it needs to be said that nature is very much like a really, really complex, strong tower of Jenga blocks. And it's, you know, as long as all of those blocks are there, the tower can be really high and it can be really stable. But start taking out a couple of those blocks, start removing a few of those species, and that tower starts getting really unstable. Take out too many pieces and eventually that tower is going to fall over. And I think that is a way that we can look at Shamwari is we got that tower at just the right time and have started putting blocks back in and started making a really strong Jenga tower. And hopefully it's only going to get stronger and stronger when you hear about future conservation projects like the new reintroduction of vultures into this area. So hopefully you can hear there's a chittering in the background, and every now and again you get a and for guides, for trails guides especially, if you're in the bush walking, that is such an important sound to recognize and to know. And in fact, the red-billed oxpecker in Swahili is known as askari wa kafiru, which means the rhino's guard. And again, it's one of those amazing relationships set up in nature between different species, where that bird is so aware of its surroundings that anytime there's something that it picks up on, and particularly humans, and sometimes at great distance, it'll give that warning call off. And that warning call is now known and recognized by the individual animals, and they now know that there's a threat close by and they will react to it. So as a trails guide, when we're walking, we listen for that all the time, and very often it's those red-billed oxpeckers that will alert us to the presence that there is potential for a rhino sleeping or a herd of buffalo or something like that. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this little segment today on the red-billed oxpeckers, birds in general. It doesn't matter where you are around the world, you're often going to be surrounded by birds, so have a look up, have a listen, and you might see some interesting species. Learn a little bit about how important they are to the ecosystem. So until next time, we'll see you soon. Stay safe and enjoy the bird watching.